The story of the Constitution of the United States is not merely the tale of a legal document, but a living narrative of struggle, compromise, hope, and an enduring belief in self-government. It begins long before the year 1787, in the minds and hearts of people who were dissatisfied with distant rule and inspired by the idea that ordinary citizens could shape their own destiny. This story unfolds across decades of conflict, debate, and vision, eventually giving birth to a framework of government that continues to guide one of the world's most influential nations. In the early 18th century, the American colonies were part of the vast British Empire. For many years, colonists considered themselves loyal British subjects. However, as the colonies grew economically and socially, tensions with Britain began to rise. Colonists were taxed by a parliament in which they had no representation, and laws were imposed without their consent. These grievances planted the seeds of a revolutionary idea, that government should derive its power from the people it governs. Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke deeply influenced colonial leaders, promoting concepts of natural rights, social contracts, and limited government. The American Revolution transformed political theory into action. When the Declaration of Independence was adopted in 1776, it boldly asserted that governments exist to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet independence alone did not solve the practical question of how 13 distinct states could govern themselves together. During the Revolutionary War, the colonies operated under the Articles of Confederation, America's first written constitution. The Articles reflected the colonists' fear of strong centralized power, deliberately creating a weak national government. Although the Articles of Confederation helped unite the states during wartime, they proved ineffective in peace. The national government lacked the authority to tax, regulate trade, or enforce laws. Each state acted largely in its own interest, issuing its own currency and setting its own policies. Economic instability followed, and conflicts between states became increasingly common. Events such as Shays' Rebellion in 1786, an uprising of farmers protesting economic hardship, alarmed national leaders and highlighted the urgent need for a stronger federal system. Recognizing these failures, delegates from the states gathered in Philadelphia in 1787 for what became known as the Constitutional Convention. Officially, their task was to revise the Articles of Confederation, but it soon became clear that minor amendments would not suffice. The delegates, including George Washington, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton, decided instead to create an entirely new system of government. This decision marked a turning point in American history. The Constitutional Convention was characterized by intense debate and remarkable compromise. Delegates disagreed on fundamental issues such as representation, state sovereignty, and the balance of power. Larger states favored representation based on population, while smaller states feared domination. This conflict was resolved through the Great Compromise, which created a bicameral legislature consisting of the House of Representatives and the Senate. This solution balanced the interests of both large and small states and remains a defining feature of the U.S. government. Another deeply divisive issue was slavery. Southern states relied heavily on enslaved labor and wanted enslaved people counted toward population totals for representation, while northern states opposed this. The resulting 3/5 compromise counted each enslaved person as 3/5 of a person for representation and taxation. While this compromise helped secure agreement among the states, it also embedded slavery into the constitutional structure, a moral contradiction that would later lead to profound national conflict. The Constitution established 3 separate branches of government, the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. This separation of powers was designed to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. Each branch was given distinct responsibilities, along with checks and balances to limit the authority of the others. For example, Congress makes laws, the President enforces them, and the courts interpret them. This system reflected the framers' deep distrust of unchecked power, shaped by their experiences under British rule. Federalism was another cornerstone of the Constitution. Power was divided between the national government and the state governments, allowing each to operate within its own sphere. This balance aimed to create a strong central authority capable of maintaining unity while preserving local control. The framers believed that such a system would protect individual liberty by preventing the concentration of power in a single authority. When the Constitution was completed in September 1787, it was not immediately accepted. It required ratification by at least 9 of the 13 states to become law. The ratification process sparked a nationwide debate unlike any seen before. Supporters of the Constitution, known as Federalists, argued that a strong national government was essential for stability and prosperity. Opponents, called Anti-Federalists, feared that the Constitution gave too much power to the federal government and did not adequately protect individual rights. The Federalist Papers, a series of essays written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay, played a crucial role in shaping public opinion. These essays explained the principles behind the Constitution and defended its provisions. They remain one of the most important works of political philosophy in American history, offering insight into the framers' intentions and reasoning. One of the most significant concerns raised by Anti-Federalists was the absence of a Bill of Rights. They argued that without explicit protections, the government could infringe upon fundamental freedoms such as speech, religion, and due process. To secure ratification, Federalists promised that amendments protecting individual liberties would be added once the Constitution was adopted. This promise proved decisive in winning support. In 1788, the Constitution was ratified, and in 1789 it officially went into effect. True to their word, the new Congress proposed 12 amendments, 10 of which were ratified in 1791 as the Bill of Rights. These amendments guaranteed essential freedoms, including freedom of speech, religion, and the press, as well as protections against unfair trials and excessive punishment. The Bill of Rights helped establish trust in the new government and remained central to American identity. Over time, the Constitution has proven to be both resilient and adaptable. Its framers intentionally created a document that could evolve with changing circumstances. The amendment process allows for change while preserving stability. Since its adoption, the Constitution has been amended 27 times, reflecting shifts in social values and political realities. Amendments have abolished slavery, extended voting rights, and redefined citizenship. The Civil War marked the most severe test of the Constitution. Disputes over states' rights and slavery culminated in a violent conflict that threatened the nation's survival. In the war's aftermath, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments fundamentally transformed the Constitution by ending slavery and guaranteeing equal protection and voting rights. These changes reaffirmed the Constitution's commitment to liberty and justice, though their promises would take generations to fully realize. The role of the Supreme Court has also been central to the Constitution's story. Through judicial review, the court interprets the Constitution and determines the constitutionality of laws. Landmark decisions have shaped American society, addressing issues such as racial segregation, freedom of expression, and privacy. In this way, the Constitution continues to be a living document, its meaning refined through interpretation and debate. In the 20th century, the Constitution guided the nation through industrialization, global wars, and social change. Amendments expanded democratic participation, including the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. During times of crisis, such as the Great Depression and World War II, constitutional principles were tested, yet the framework endured, providing continuity amid change. The Constitution's influence extends beyond the United States. It has inspired democratic movements and constitutional frameworks around the world. Its emphasis on the rule of law, individual rights, and balanced government has made it a model for nations seeking to establish stable and free societies. While not perfect, it represents a bold experiment in self-governance. Today, the Constitution remains at the center of political and social debates. Questions about the limits of governmental power, the protection of rights, and the interpretation of constitutional language continue to shape public discourse. These debates reflect the framers' vision of an engaged citizenry actively participating in the democratic process. The enduring strength of the Constitution lies in its ability to unite a diverse nation under shared principles while allowing room for disagreement and change. It is both a product of its time and a timeless guide, rooted in the belief that liberty and order can coexist. The story of the Constitution is, ultimately, the story of the American people and their ongoing effort to form a more perfect union. As generations pass, the Constitution continues to speak, not as a static artifact, but as a living promise. It reminds citizens that freedom requires responsibility, that power must be restrained, and that democracy depends on the active participation of the people. In this sense, the Constitution is not only a legal document but a shared national narrative, one that continues to unfold with each passing chapter of American history.